Nobody wants to see a nuclear war. Nobody can win that. And as we do things and as we, take actions, we're always mindful of making sure that we have the right balance and that we're taking the right approach. So there's always a possibility that a number of things can happen, but again, I think it's unhelpful and dangerous to rattle sabers and speculate about the use of nuclear weapons.
It was U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin in Germany earlier today, blasting the latest rhetoric coming from Russia as being dangerous to every last one of us. The Kremlin's foreign minister accused the West of waging a proxy war with Russia by arming Ukraine, and he warned such support poses considerable risk of nuclear conflict. Yes, nuclear. Austin this morning continued to deliver that strong stance on our support of Ukraine, pledging and demanding, really, more weapons assistance from the West. While speaking to defense officials he gathered from more than 40 countries, all of whom, he said, left the meeting, quote, more resolved than ever to help Ukraine defend itself against Russian aggression and atrocity. Some big news from Germany in that meeting, too. And on that front, Germany announcing it would send up to 50 anti-aircraft vehicles directly to Ukraine. It seems like a major shift in its weapons policy after weeks of pressure to do more and to do more quickly. Joining us now, former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor, now Vice President for Russia and Europe at the U.S. Institute of Peace, and retired four-star General Barry McCaffrey, a former member of the National Security Council, now, lucky for us, an MSNBC military analyst. And you have the tweet of the day on this nuclear question. But I just want to back up a minute because I haven't had a chance to speak to either of you since what feels like an historic visit by two of the most senior U.S. government officials, Secretary Austin and Secretary Blinken. And Secretary Austin has sort of grabbed the mic in a way that I haven't seen him do yet on the world stage as our country's top defense official. And I just wonder, from your view, first, Ambassador Taylor, and then yours, General McCaffrey, what you make of the trip and what it has yielded so far. Ambassador, you first.
Thanks, Nicole. A great trip. Great demonstration of U.S. support for Ukraine. The Ukrainians appreciate it. Others have been there, of course, but it's great to see the senior people of the United States government showing up in Kyiv, having that conversation with President Zelensky and the defense minister, Minister Reznikov, and the foreign minister, Minister Kuleba. It was clearly a long, substantive conversation. So it both was symbolic of our support, but it also got into the details of what kinds of support we were going to do. It talked about the new ambassador going to come out there. They talked about moving the embassy back to Kyiv sooner or later, hopefully sooner. So it was a good conversation. Very glad they were there.
And General McCaffrey, I want to understand from you, how much more persuasive can you be when you're speaking to your counterparts from, I don't know, say Germany, after having just been in the room? Tell me how that translates in terms of sort of rallying for more nations to do more on the military front.
Well, you make a good point. Look, Zoom is terrific, but at the end of the day, the personal interaction, the personal sense of trust, and I might add, Secretary Lloyd Austin has properly let Tony Blinken be the face of U.S. foreign policy. But Secretary Austin and Mark Milley, the chairman of the JCS, have been determined and exhaustive in bringing together these coalitions. It started with U.S. European Command in Stuttgart, Germany. General Todd Walters, an Air Force four-star, who actually runs with 15 nations cooperating the arms deliveries across the border to Ukraine. And, now we've expanded that. And the whole point of this conference was to regularize and get some longevity planning into supporting Ukraine. We're very fortunate to have these two experienced, sober-minded people running the Pentagon.
General McCaffrey, you tweeted this. It caught all of our attention here about Russia's, the Secretary of Defense called it saber rattling. Quote, the Russian amped up nuclear threat is hard to fathom. I've dealt with nuclear strategy much of my life. A Putin threat of nuclear deployment after a failed conventional invasion is bizarre, illogical, not credible, madness. Russia could not survive. Is it, in your view, would you go so far as to say it's an acknowledgement of all this, an acknowledgement that Putin has failed in his conventional approach? And do you think it means that the risk isn't real? What do you make?
Well, look, from an intellectual viewpoint, and I have dealt with this issue throughout much of my adult life. You know, at the height of the Cold War, there were like 20,000 nuclear weapons on each side. It was utter madness, but it was stable. It was deterrence. They were never used. There was never a shot fired in Europe. Now we've got a lot less nuclear weapons in a lot more hands, and it's getting unstable. So Foreign Minister Lavrov and Putin making these outrageous, irresponsible threats with nuclear weapons, it's hard to fathom. Either Putin's starting to unravel, some of that's true, a lot of it's undoubtedly a complete bluff, but it's horrendously unsettling. I mean, Russia would vaporize after 3 days of a nuclear exchange. They know that. So what are they doing? It's just entirely illogical and unsettling to the global community.
And unsettling, Ambassador Taylor, to no one more than the Ukrainians. I mean, I've heard public and private real despair and concern about what one of the most senior Russian officials. I mean, I think these came from Lavrov today, and it's from Sergei Lavrov, certainly always thought to be very close to Vladimir Putin. What is the sense from the people you talk to in Ukraine about the real risk of Putin using nuclear weapons there?
So, Nicole, the Ukrainians don't put much stock in what President Putin says or what Foreign Minister Lavrov says. They have lied to the world, and they've lied to the Ukrainians. They've lied. They said they were not going to invade. They said all these troops around Ukraine were there for exercises. So the Ukrainians, they're concerned like everybody else, like General McCaffrey just said. The people are concerned. It's unsettling to hear that kind of talk from senior people in what you would hope to be responsible governments, but they're not. And they lied. And so the Ukrainians discount this pretty significantly.